I want to show you here just a very quick and dirty way to use variables with the for each loop container and how you can use that to access the file name of every file in a folder. So the premise of this is we need to be able to loop through every single file in a folder and perform some operation. Maybe load it up using a data flow task, load it up using bulk insert, email it to someone, so zip it up. So for every file in a folder, we need to perform a particular operation. Well, to do that, you really need to understand how variables work with the for each container. So let's do this. Let me show you a couple of things here. One, I've got a folder of MP3s, and I want to, later on, I want to be able to load every MP3 in this folder into a SQL Server database. So we're going to have to convert it into binary, then we're going to have to load it into the database. So we need to go ahead and get started with this for each loop container here. So here, tell you what I'm going to do. Create myself a new project. Let's just fire it up here. New integration services project. Drag for each container once it loads it up. Come on, man. This is the first time I've launched this since a reboot, so it's a little bit slower. So now I just find my for each loop container and I double click on it. And if you remember, we took a look at this in some of the earlier chapters here. There's lots of different collections here. And each one of them is going to be able to take advantage of the variables. I'm going to show you how to do the for each file enumerator this time. Later on, we'll talk about using the ADO enumerator. Those are probably the two big ones that you're going to work with. So let's do the for each file. There's a little bit of a bug here. You have to actually change off and then you can change back and the screen shows up. So I'm going to point to the directory that has our MP3 files, and I specifically want files that end in MP3. And what is it that you want to find? What do you want to send back? Do you want to send back the fully qualified path, including the path and the file name? Not what I meant, sorry. Just the name and extension. What are you trying to do? I'm going to send back the fully qualified path. And if I just say OK, you remember from a couple of videos I showed you how to do the little pop-ups. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I want to populate a variable. So let's go over here to variables. And I'm going to make a variable, and it's just called file name. And we'll make a string. And no need to have a default value. Now notice one thing about this is that the scope is at the package level. I may or may not want that. If I need to pass this data, marshal this data, if you will, from one container to another, from one task to another, then I'm probably cool doing a package scope. However, if the lifetime of this variable is really dead once it leaves the container, I would want to make it a container scope, which means I would click on the container, then I would create a file name variable, and you can see that it's scoped to specifically this file for each. And so I would name this for each file or for each MP3. Okay, and so then it updates over here and now for each MP3. So, for this one, I'm not actually going to pass this data out of the for each. So I would delete my package variable. I'm cool with the package or with the variable being scoped to this particular container. I don't plan on using another task outside of the container that requires that data. Okay, so in my for each loop, let's go back up here and let's take a look at our collection. So what's actually going to happen, it's going to read this MP3s folder. And for each MP3, you're going to do a variable mapping. So really, this particular collection is going to return let me do this. I'm going to just drop down and choose the file name. And the for each file enumerator as index 0. So the first column that comes back from the for each enumerator is going to come back as the actual path. So I map this variable to what comes out of this. So really, I'm telling it in the for each file, index 0 equals, and I define that because I have this circled, index 0 is the fully qualified file name. So I'm going to store the fully qualified file name in the value of the variable. That's what we did in the variable mappings tab. Okay. I'm keeping this real simple right now. Later on, we're going to talk about having multiple columns and multiple indexes, indices. However, right now, index 0 is that value here. Okay. And if you remember also from our previous video how to do a pop-up, that's all I'm going to do with a script task. So let's just have it pop up. I want to rename it. I'm trying to get it to do it. Just pop up. And what language you want to do? You want to do C# or VB? I think I did the last one in C#, so I'll do this one in VB. Do we need to change the value to do a pop-up? No. So we'll make it read-only. We'll get our file name. And I noticed one thing right here. You notice that I goofed up. I made this an int. I need that to be a string. So I'm going to go ahead back to my variables here, click on my scope, and I'm going to change the data type there. So now it's a string. So back in my pop-up, all I have to do, oh man, now I made it C#. By the way, I know we said this before, but once you click the Edit Script button down here, notice that up here you cannot change the language. That Edit Script extracts a template, and once that template has been created, you can only delete and add in a new Visual Basic one. So I have to actually go delete that, come back, drag this in here to do a Visual Basic one like we said we would do. So pop up, choose my language, choose my variable now. Now you see that it says string. And edit the script. And you know, if you're smart, you're just going to copy and paste. That way you don't have any problems here. So I'm just hitting Control C and system.windows.forms.show and put it to string, and it was called file name. Good? Okay. So I say okay. And I mean, this is really the ultimate in simplicity here. You can see because we told it to send us the full path, that's exactly what it's done. And it's doing pop-ups right here. And there were 3 files, and it looped through 3 times. Now, I know that's really simple stuff, right? Not a whole lot to it. However, this is going to build. So when we get to talking about expressions, which isn't really that far off in a few videos from now, we're going to talk about using expressions. We're not going to be doing pop-ups here at all. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be dragging data flow tasks in here, and we're going to be dragging a flat file source, and we're going to be wiring up the name and path to the file using that variable. So we're going to be making dynamic packages that can load up every file in a folder. But to be able to do that, you've got to understand how the for each works with the variable mappings, how this actually maps and how it all works here. Okay? So I think that's kind of a good basic. I'll tell you what we'll do in the next video. I'm going to show you the same type of thing. However, we'll do the for each item enumerator, and then in the next video we'll do the for each ADO enumerator. And so we'll talk about both of those. If you think you have a good handle on it, you can safely skip those. If you kind of get the idea of how the variable mapping works, and you can go on to the next set of videos. It's up to you if you want to watch. They're going to probably be fairly short now that we've kind of put the work in to talk about variables.